forth, like my paperwork's up top. We're just reorienting. So the whole purpose of work sessions was to be able to get together and hear the different things going on in the community, and it's more of a meeting focused. So we still got a couple minutes. Can we start early for work session, or is that like? I mean, I don't want
Jill
to
just
get, I
said
don't want to
yes.
get in trouble, but if the law said
Jill
it's
Allen just
okay,
said-
what JA say?
Shook her
Say
head.
it's okay.
The chills. That's right. So we'll call the informal meeting of the city commission together. Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Brown, Dr. Estrop,
Here.
Mrs. Houston. Here. Mrs. Tackett. Here. Mr. Rue.
Here. And we will turn this over to Brian as he leads us.
Yes, Commission, thank you. We do have one work session tonight, and as you mentioned, we're back to the work session tables. This is the first time since COVID. And so we're actually live
See
now.
how informal
So.
we can get there.
Officially
But-
on the record.
So tonight, I'm glad to have with us tonight for our work session, members representing Springfield CTC, and they're going to talk to us about their levy that is going to be on the ballot here on March 19th. And with us tonight is Angela Yake, Laura Lee Donaker, and Chris Williams. And so I'm going to turn it over, I think, to Angela to start.
Good evening. I am Angela Yake, like you already said. I am a lifelong resident of Clark County, and I am the cybersecurity instructor at the Springfield Clark County Career Technology Center, also known as CTC, formerly known as JVS. I am coming before you today to address the levy that will be on the ballot in March. The proposed levy does present a crucial opportunity for us to invest in the future of our youth and our community. It is an additional tax for the purpose of general permanent improvements. Those improvements are intended to come via the construction of a new building on our current land. So I am here today representing our dedicated teachers who tirelessly guide and inspire our students to reach their full potential. The focus on career technical education ensures that our students graduate with the skills and knowledge needed to succeed in their chosen future paths. In today's rapidly changing world, the need for adaptability is more critical than ever. Careers like cybersecurity highlight the constant evolution of industries and the importance of staying ahead of the curve. Our space must be adaptable to accommodate these changes and provide students with the latest resources and technologies, even with excellent maintenance team. Even with our excellent maintenance team, my room has large windows that leak in heavy rain. The computer lab is extremely hot when the sun comes in early afternoon. Yet so cold sometimes mid-morning that it's hard to concentrate. The inability to regulate the temperature with the equipment we have and the design of the space affect learning. And additionally, the multiple building facility that we currently have was never designed for a computer network nor reliable internet access. And it does affect IT's ability to provide me with the multiple network structure that would be ideal for teaching cybersecurity. Furthermore, our commitment to community outreach, such as the partnership that was provided for you via a New Sun article that was in yesterday's local paper, does highlight our ability to expand opportunities for our students beyond the classroom, fostering connections and providing real-world experience. So by supporting this levy, we not only invest in the infrastructure that's needed, but also in the continued dedication of our teachers, the expansion of community partnerships, and the adaptability of our programs to meet the demands of emerging careers. So I would just urge all of you to support us in that. And then I am pleased to introduce current student Lorelei Donaker to speak about her.
Hi, I'm Lorelai Doniker. I'm a student in the Digital Media Design Lab. I am a junior currently. I'm half day. I also go to Greenon for my academic. I could say as a half day, there are some things with the school not being so big and not, our accessibility is quite not great. I am in Building E, and we recently had a storm that had happened while we were at school, and the flooding was awful. We had a couple students that had fell getting onto the bus, and some that were getting into their cars, and that's not great. There was some issues with the intercoms and stuff that we have had with the technology that we have currently was, as Ms. Yates said, was never designed for the school now today. Our technology is way behind. I'm also a second generation student. My dad went to JVS, and he has walked through the school and said that there is many things that has not changed, which is a very big issue. One of the things I have spoke on is you tell us students to dream big. And how are they supposed to do that if we are turning hundreds of students away because we do not have a big enough school? I have watched multiple students from Greenon. I was a second round student who almost got turned away, and the opportunities that I have been given wouldn't have made happen if I wasn't accepted in this school. We have multiple parents that are not happy about their students not getting accepted in this school, but there's nothing we can do about it because the levy has not been passed for the first time. So I would say that we really, really need a bigger school, not only for our students, but for the teachers who need a bigger technology area for us. Thank you.
And I don't know if I can say any more than what has already been very eloquently said here this evening by our staff member and one of our students. But I want to say thanks for having us here, Mayor Ruse, city commissioners, all those in attendance. Again, my name is Chris Williams. I'm the former president of the Springfield City School District Board of Education. I currently serve as their representative for the Springfield Clark CTC Board of Education. Again, here before you this evening to discuss the importance of the upcoming levy. As a product of what was then known as Springfield Clark JVS, I can tell you that the real world experiences that were taught and learned have helped carry me throughout my career. During my time at JVS, I studied both computer technology and marketing, both of which I use very heavily today in the field of robotics. Attending those programs allowed me to earn college credits that were also very beneficial post-graduation. So also, they've been instrumental in my career successes. So I would absolutely say that, yes, CTC works. When I had the opportunity to walk the campus grounds 2 years ago myself, I was in total shock of the appearance, quite frankly. The buildings had not changed much since I last walked them 30 years prior. Many of the areas were barely holding up due to aging. In many cases, they were literally being held up by tape. Other areas were in total disrepair and in desperate need of an upgrade. I'd like to commend our facilities team at the CTC for keeping things literally glued together, because in many cases it's a Band-Aid effect. And the time has come to where we need to make significant changes to the campus. We have an opportunity to enhance the educational experience for our students and to provide a state-of-the-art learning environment for a minimal cost to our taxpayers. For what many might pay for a cup of coffee for once a month, we can vastly improve the quality of our campus and program offerings. Just to give you some context to that, a home valued at a taxable amount of $100,000, you're looking at $4 a month. So essentially $49 annually is what the cost would be to taxpayers. As we all, as well as accept and introduce many students to learning trade skills as they transition to post-graduation life. Workforce development is a key factor in many educational environments today, as well as many businesses. So providing our students with state-of-the-art facilities and opportunities to grow, develop, and have those trade skills as they enter into a competitive marketplace is going to be critical to their future as an employable individu. A majority vote of yes vote for March 19th would mean our city receives an $89.5 million investment into the future of our students and our community. Of that, $38.7 million will be covered directly from the state. That's not something we see often in this city. However, without your support and those of the voters of Clark County, that opportunity will go away. maybe forever, if it not for a long time. The impact could be catastrophic and have major implications on the future of the CTC and the students it serves. You've already spoken, she's already spoken about how many students we turn away annually. It's disappointing to hear that, quite frankly, as a board member and as an alumni, because I understand the importance of getting the education from the CTC and the things that could impact the future of someone who does not have that opportunity, or maybe not even, have an opportunity to get any sort of higher education or trade skill training. So I ask for your support in the upcoming election. We want to bring new life, new energy, and create new career paths that will benefit students for years to come in a continuously evolving career climate. Not to mention, it could be the beginning of rejuvenating the area of the city that has gone neglected for far too long. So I appreciate your time this evening, and look forward to your support of the CTC.
Thank you so much. There's no doubt that CTC, having a successful CTC is incredibly important for the success of our community. Obviously, developing the workforce that we desperately need, and refilling honestly the interest in the trades that we've lacked so much. I mean, the trades are just kind of have dissipated, and you guys will inspire an interest in that. So, I mean, I wholeheartedly support this, and will move that we also pass a resolution to support this openly when we get there. I know there's probably comments from the commissioner, but I do want to come to the commissioners. How many students do you think you turn away annually? You may have said that, if you could repeat it if you already did, but is there a guesstimate?
It's about 200 or so plus annually.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how old's the building again? Last new. Mm-hmm. Commissioners, comment?
One of my functions, along with Mayor Rue, on the city commission, is to set on the board of directors of the CIC, which is the economic development engine of the county, the city, and the Chamber of Commerce. One of the things that we have heard over and over is the need for a skilled, trained workforce that's up to date and able to go into the jobs that we now have and will have in the future here in Clark County. Some of those jobs are not far from here at the Springfield Beckley Airport, where we're dealing with next generation drones and electric vehicles that fly vertically as well as a straight pattern. We need this levy to pass so our students have up-to-date training, and so we have the capacity to take more students. Just think, since 67. Think about some of you won't remember this because you probably were not here, but remember what a 1967 car looked like compared to a car today. All the difference in the world. All the difference in the world. So the argument that some would make that, well, it was good enough for me, I don't think holds any water. Because frankly, it's not good enough in today's world. If all you have are the skills to repair a 1967 automobile, good luck trying to repair one of the cars today. You're not going to be able to do it. So we need this. We need it now for jobs, not only now, but in the future. So, Mr. Mayor Rue, I would be happy to make the motion for a resolution in support whenever is the appropriate time.
I'd like to add to what Dr. Estrop just said. So just putting my corporate hat on for a moment. So I work in the robotic and automation field, and we serve every industry you could possibly think of, whether it be from automotive to farming, to an industrial, to cold, everything you can think of, we serve. So robotics as a program at the CTC, I can tell you, not only is it just, people say that robots are taking over and taking people's jobs. It's the contrary. People are learning new skill trades in terms of robotics, because now they're learning how to program, how to maintain them, all sorts of different things, aspects come into play when you're talking about robotics and automation. That's an industry that our kids could have an opportunity to be exposed to, that can grow and develop much broader scope. We have an engineering student here right now, so that would fit great into that field. So there's a world of opportunities, to your point, Dr. Estrad, which was very well made, that I think, from a broad scope, I think some people don't really understand the impact and overall outcome that can generate. But if we have the opportunity to build this new campus, you can best believe that those opportunities will become far greater for our students.
Absolutely.
Thank
And the one thing we hear over and over from the private sector is we need a trained workforce.
Yes. We have a training academy at my company, and employers are constantly sending their employees in to get that training, because they did not have any of those skills when they hired them. So they're investing in them as well.
Right.
So it's important that we do the same for our students here in Clark County,
Absolutely.
to give them the advantage.
As a graduate from CTC, aka JVS, it was my experience there and my education there that took me down the path into being a small business owner and owning Serendipity now for a decade. I definitely encourage the community to consider this opportunity to advance our education in our community by supporting our students through a yes vote. Thank you guys for being here tonight.
I'll just add, I am in total support of, this levy. I think it's really important to put focus back on skilled trades and give students opportunities to start their career and support themselves right out of high school. We all know how expensive college is now. I know my parents couldn't afford to send me to college, so I had to get creative and I had to take out loans. I transferred, I finished online just to avoid, being saddled with student loans when I graduated. I wish that I would have had the opportunity to do something like this, to study cybersecurity in high school. The opportunity that you are providing these kids, high school students, is unmatched, and you have definitely my full support.
My son will be there next year in the electrician program, so thank you guys.
Can I touch on something?
Please.
We have a really, it was pointed out from one of our students. We had a meeting where we had a board of students that talked. And one of the biggest issues right now is we have a very bad, the workforce is not great right now. And we have students that are separated in actual high schools that are being turned away because there's students that do want to learn how to do a work trade. And then you have students that don't, and that doesn't match. And I have multiple students in my lab right now that they don't want to go to college. They don't want to go through the loan process. They just don't want to go to college. They don't want to do another year of school. And they came to the Career Center because they were going to get the certificates that they were going to get in college. But now we're turning away students that maybe this was their last chance. This was the only chance they had to be in the workforce of what they wanted to be, because their parents can't pay for college, or they're not doing great in school, so they didn't want to go to college because they don't want to fail and then have to pay for that failed class, And I feel like that's a big thing that's being overlooked right now with the last levy. And that's why I feel like we need to push it, is you have students that want to learn a trade force and they can't get the certificates they need because they don't want to go to college, but yet they're being turned away when you tell them to dream big. So.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Is there any other?
Commissioners, thank you to our presenters from CTC. I just want to add on that, just the partnership we have between the city of Springfield and Springfield CTC, whether it be existing through our service department with forestry, fleet maintenance, to the excitement that I have about the recently added criminal justice program and what that means for building a pipeline for officers for the future of our community. And so the partnerships there, the things that are happening are great. Everybody's touched on the need for workforce, and CTC is helping meet that need for the community. So thank you, and we appreciate you coming out and talking more about the levy.
And one last point I'll make, as more and more businesses move into our community, if we can show them that we have a partnership like the CTC, with the city that we're actually developing, their future employees. I mean, I think that speaks volumes, for making Springfield an even more attractive site for businesses and community members. So.
I agree.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Tackett,
Yes.
Mrs. Houston,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mr. Rue.
Yes. Photo op over here at the photo wall, and then we will begin our next hearing. Sam, you have to. Okay, the public hearing that was scheduled for 6:55. Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Brown, Dr. Estrop. Here. Mrs. Houston.
Here.
Mrs. Tackett. Here. Mr. Rue.
Here. Has proper legal notice been given of this hearing?
Notice of a public hearing for the purpose of considering the proposed amendment to the CC2A District Development Plan for 2.148 acres at 2302 St. Paris Connector was published in the Springfield News Sun, a newspaper of general circulation within the city. Attached here too is a true and correct copy of the legal notice published on January 28, 2024.
I move that the communication be ordered received, recorded in the minutes, and filed.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Tackett.
Yes.
Mrs. Houston.
Yes.
Dr. Estrop.
Yes.
Mr. Rue.
Yes. Staff report?
The applicant, good evening, everyone. The applicant is requesting to amend the CC2A plan for hotel site at St. Paris Pike. It's highlighted in yellow on the slide. The land use of the parcel is not changing, but they are proposing revisions to parking areas and rearranging vehicular access and orientation of the building. The CC2A plan of 2014 for St. Paris Pike and Bechtel area shows was showing 64 rooms and approximately 68 parking spaces. This plan was amended in 2022 for the hotel site, and at that time, it was proposed to have 98 rooms and 96 parking spaces and a building area of approximately 15,000 square feet. And it showed a different parking configuration. After any CC2A development plan has been approved by the City Commission, and in the course of carrying out such plan, if any adjustments or rearrangements of vehicular access and buildings are made, such changes can be requested by the applicants. Per current code, such adjustments or rearrangements are to be authorized by motion of the City Commission after being recommended by the City Planning Board. The proposed amendment plan will have 101 rooms, 110 parking spaces with a building area of approximately 17,000 square feet. The applicant has stated that the revisions to parking configuration will also provide better accessibility through the site for customers and for emergency services. The proposed plan also shows reduction of parking spaces to add near the entrance here as shown on the plan, to add an entrance canopy and changes made to the access of private internal roads. The Connect Clark County Comprehensive Plan shows future character area as commercial center. Bechtel Avenue is classified as 100-foot wide primary arterial public right-of-way. St. Pius Pike is classified as 80-foot wide secondary arterial public right-of-way, while St. Pius Pike Connector is classified as local right-of-way by the Clark County Thoroughfare Plan. Return reports from city staff state no objections and recommend approval of applicant's request to amend the CC2A plan at subject parcel. Applicant's request was recommended approval by the City Planning Board. There was one concerned neighbor. He had requested information on how the site will be screened as there are residences to the east of site, as shown by arrow here. The owner or applicant or their representatives were not present at the planning board meeting to provide a response, and in their submittals, they have not presented any plans showing the screening or landscaping for the site. The neighbor was requested to attend City Commission meeting. Any landscaping requirements for site will be reviewed by staff during building permit plan review process, and there were no concerns till today's meeting. Thank you.
Other comments from commissioners? Dr. Estrop?
Question, as I understand what's being proposed, it's not changing any of the exits onto Bechtel or St. Paris Connector or St. Paris. It's simply changing the arrangement of the parking lot within the parcel. Am I understanding this correctly?
Yes.
Okay. So everything in terms of the connections to the road stays the same?
Yes, they're saying.
Okay. Were there any further objections other than the one as the process moved forward to us this evening?
No, there were none.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
From the audience? Is there a motion to adjourn the hearing?
So move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Houston,
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett,
Yes.
Dr. Estrom,
Yes.
Mr. Rue.
Yes. Okay, that concluded our hearing. We're going to go ahead and begin our formal meeting. Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Brown, Dr. Estrom,
Here.
Mrs. Houston.
Here.
Mrs. Tackett.
Here.
Mr. Rue.
Here. Your statement to read, or is this from previous? Okay, previous. Before we continue, Commissioner Brown is ill and cannot be here tonight. She wanted to make sure that the public knew that. It's the only reason here, and she's had to miss tonight's meeting. And I can say with certainty, she is completely supportive of CPC's effort in this levy. So, you'd stand for the invocation and pledge? Father, I just ask that you would just give us guidance tonight and wisdom as we make decisions that will help lead the city. Father, we ask just for this gun violence we just ask for the safety of our community just to be prevalent, to be on people's minds. And Father, we just ask for justice to be served in your name. Amen. Motion to approve minute.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes. Clerk, proceed with first reading.
Excuse me.
Aye.
Point of personal privilege. Since we have all these folks here, could we take action on a motion on CTC now? Can we do that, Counselor?
Yes, if you want to entertain a motion, you can.
And then they wouldn't have to wait till the end of the meeting for us to take action. Well, I would like to make a motion that the Springfield City Commission endorses the CTC levy and urges all of the people of the city of Springfield to vote in favor of it to assure a prosperous economic future for our children.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes. If you want to leave, you're welcome to leave, or you can stay for this very exciting meeting. There's lots of wonderful things going on in Springfield going on here, so. Thank you. Clerk, now go ahead and proceed with first readings by title only.
Approving an amendment to the existing CC2A District Development Plan for 2.148 acres at 2302 St. Paris Connector to modify the planned building layout and parking configuration. Authorizing the city manager to execute a perpetual water and sewer line easement by and between the city and Villa Run Condominium Unit Owners Association to assume ownership and maintenance responsibilities for various utilities as detailed in the easement. Authorizing an additional expenditure relating to the contract with Highbridge Consulting LLC for professional consulting services for an amount not to exceed $6,000 for a total amount not to exceed $126,000. Authorizing the city manager to accept a 2024 Energized Community Grant through the Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council, NOPEC, in an amount up to $59,563 to be used for implementation of energy savings or energy infrastructure measures. Authorizing the city manager to execute a grant agreement for the acceptance of said grant, and authorizing the city manager, law director, and director of finance to do all things necessary for the acceptance of the grant and to comply with all relevant local, state, and federal legal requirements. Authorizing and directing the city manager to select certain identified parcels of real estate that constitute non-productive lands and to notify the prosecuting attorney or the county auditor of Clark County, Ohio, as the case may be, pursuant to sections 5722.03 and 5722.04 of the Ohio Revised Code, that the city wishes to acquire said parcels pursuant to the provisions of Ohio Revised Code Chapter 5722 and Ordinance Number 98293, passed August 25th, 1998, and to do all things necessary to acquire said parcels. Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract for the purchase of street materials with Highway LLC for an amount not to exceed $76,720. Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract for the purchase of street materials with Shelley Materials Incorporated for an amount not to exceed $444,975. Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract for the purchase of street materials with A&B Asphalt Corporation for an amount not to exceed $453,490. Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract for the purchase of street materials with Valley Asphalt Corporation for
for an amount not to exceed $707,380. Authorizing the purchase of one Bomford FlailBot remote control slope mower and all necessary accessories from RL Parsons Equipment for an amount not to exceed $124,951 through Sourcewell pursuant to the Sourcewell Contract Purchasing Cooperative Program in accordance with the provisions of Section 9.48 of the Ohio Revised Code.
Thank you. I've asked the city manager to kind of educate us and the public a little bit more on some of these first readings, and I think you have a list.
Yes, Commission. So I'll start with 042-24, which is authorizing the perpetual water and sewer line easement, essentially assuming the ownership and maintenance responsibilities for the water and sewer mains, the fire hydrants, and the manholes at the Villa Run Condominium Unit Owners Association land. I will say this is about 18 months of work. Dr. Estrop was involved in working with the condo association, as well as Chris Moore and his team at the service department, and working to investigate, one, the status of their utilities. What we found is they were in really good shape. We did have minor issues that the condo association was responsible for repairing and fixing prior to us taking ownership and maintenance responsibilities for these items, and then also had the condo association work with an attorney to draft the agreement as well as the overall easements themselves. This serves 247 condos off of Durr and Villa Road in our community. The next one I want to highlight is 044 go ahead.
I was just going to ask before we leave that one. What's important about this is not only the specifics of the precedent it sets for Villa Run, but for similar, because there are other condominium developments in the city that face the same issues or will at some point. So it seems to me this is setting a precedent for others who may come to us and say, hey, would you take over our stuff? Do you care to comment on that?
Yes, it certainly lays out a path forward for us to consider taking over the ownership and maintenance responsibilities for these. It sets out the specifics that would have to happen on the condo association side for us to consider taking over those utilities, and lays out what we will take over. Again, water mains, fire hydrants, sewer mains, and manholes. This does not include stormwater infrastructure or water services or laterals. So it does lay out that groundwork for any future agreement like this.
Thank you.
044-24 doesn't really say much. It talks about identified parcels of real estate that will notify the prosecuting attorney of county auditor that we would be interested in these. This is related to our Mow to Own program. And so this is 16 new parcels that fall through as a part of our Mow to Own program. Our Mow to Own program has been in place since 2016, and since 2016, this will make 219 parcels of land that have been transferred to an adjoining or close to adjoining property owner who has put the sweat equity into this land, this vacant land in our community, to turn it back into productive use. And so we're excited for what this program has done.
Absolutely.
And then I'll end with, there's 4 items pretty much interrelated as it relates to purchasing street materials. One of them is specifically to our cold mix. I'll highlight that this is a contract that represents a 9% decrease from last year, but still higher than what we were seeing in 2022, just to put perspective on it. And then some of the other contracts, we saw a 0% increase on asphalt. The tack material that we utilize, a 25% decrease in that. I do want to highlight, though, these are street materials, but one of the things that we see and has continued to go up as it relates to our road work is concrete. Concrete is once again up 11% from last year. And to note, 2019, so before COVID, we were paying about $110 a yard. In 2024 pricing, it's $168 a yard. So concrete has still, even though we're seeing an asphalt down or a 0%, we're still seeing concrete soar.
Dr. Escom?
This is different, and perhaps Mr. Moore wants to speak to this. This is different than our neighborhood paving program. This is maintenance of the street and some small paving project, but this is not part of that 2 million we're going to spend on neighborhood paving.
Yes, Commission, you're correct on that. And then Chris, if you want to just talk about how we're able to do some in-house paving as well as what this provides for.
These are the materials that we use to do our day-to-day repairs and primarily for water and sewer digs. But each year around October, we're able to take some of this asphalt, and there are certain streets that fit the criteria where we can go in and do an overlay. And we've been able to do 6 to 10 of those per year. So that would come out of this purchase.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner comments, audience comments on first readings only. Hearing none, we'll continue.
Authorizing the withdrawal of the City of Springfield, Ohio from the National Trail Park and Recreation District effective April 30, 2024.
So moved.
Sorry,
reading.
that is a first
First
reading.
reading.
Oh.
I should have included it. I'm sorry.
sorry.
First reading resolution.
Can we have somebody tell us about this, Alette?
I'd like to hear about it.
Yes, Commission, I'll actually ask Leanne Castillo if you'd like to talk a little bit about it, but this involves the merger with the Clark County Park District between NTPRD and the existing Clark County Park District.
All right, thank you. I did provide the newest activity guides for you, which is a joint activity guide. There's been community members working for over a decade to reduce the duplication of services and eliminate some of the spending that we do because we have 2 countywide park districts in Clark County. So this would be dissolving National Trail, and we would join with the Clark County Park District to provide all of the parks and recreation services as well as all of the program and education that we do. So our staffs would be merging. No one is losing their job. We do have one commission that is appointed by the probate judge. Some of those members from both of our boards are here tonight in support of this, but it's been a long time coming, and we've already begun to merge our programs, some of our maintenance practices, and the final piece would be in May when we are fully merged with the city serving as our fiduciary. And I think that's a much more transparent process because we will have our own bank accounts and the city will serve as the fiduciary to work with those and pay all of our bills. So we will see some services that will be expanded, and we will see better maintenance practices, more consistent, and then some savings in areas that we had not realized before.
I just appreciate all the effort you've put into doing this. I think this makes tremendous sense. The parks serve the entire community of Springfield and everywhere, so that's the way it should be. And I appreciate all the time and effort and the board's effort.
Yeah, they're very much an asset, appreciated in the community. Thank you.
I too want to thank you and everyone who's been involved in this effort. Parks and recreation are a critical part of any good community. We are blessed with a number of very nice parks in our city and in our county. And to have them run effectively and efficiently is exactly what needs to happen so that people can enjoy these benefits to our. Thank you.
And proceed with second reading.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement for sale and purchase of real estate for the purchase of certain real property located at 2010 West Jackson Road from the estate of Charles W. Garrity for an amount not to exceed $108,000, and authorizing the city manager, law director, and director of finance to perform all acts and execute all documents they consider necessary to fulfill the city's obligations under said agreement and to comply with all relevant local, state, and federal legal requirements.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Are there comments from commissioners?
Just wondering if staff might give us a little additional information about this.
Yes, again, Commission, this is a purchase of a piece of property down near the airport that is in the runway protection area. And so we will work to purchase the property. We've been working for some time. We were working with Mr. Garrity, and then unfortunately he passed away. And then we've been working with the estate to finalize the purchase. And then we will seek reimbursement from FAA for the dollars spent on this land, as again, it falls within that runway protection area.
And the FAA, in essence, ordered us to do that.
The FAA, yes, as we do our long-term planning for the airport, they like to see us purchase areas that fall within this runway protection area.
Very good.
Brian, is it correct that no one else can buy this property due to the runway protection area? Or no one else can live there?
I don't think that's exactly correct, but Tom, I'll have him speak more directly to the program.
The city maintains a navigation easement over this property now, which gives us the right to go in and cut trees down because it's in that RPZ as they spoke about. But someone else could buy it. Mr. Garrity had been working with the airport for a long time to get it. Unfortunately, just he had a long illness that kind of interrupted our negotiations on it. But it could have been purchased, but it would be limited in what could be done there.
Comments from the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Dr. Estrom?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to accept a donation from the Clark County Prosecutor Dan Driscoll in the amount of $13,164 to be used for the purchase of I2 software to be utilized by the Springfield Police Division.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. If I can have the chief speak to this.
Good evening, Mayor Rue, Commission. Thank you. So this is software we spoke about last time with our new crime analyst program. This will be some software that we can utilize to analyze all the data that is collected throughout their investigation. It will also help with the presentation for court and trials. So it will definitely help us as we present a case to the court. And we are extremely grateful for Dan Driscoll and his office for being willing to partner with us and graciously donate the money to further this program along. He's been pivotal in this program as well as we've started it from the ground up.
Thank
you.
Comments from the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Dr. Estrom?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into amendment number 1 to the agreement with OMAC Hauling Incorporated for abatement and nuisance condition services as needed by the city to implement the agreement in an amount not to exceed $40,000 for a total amount not to exceed $90,000.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Other comments from commissioners? From the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Dr. Estrom?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into amendment number 2 to the subrecipient funding agreement with Habitat for Humanity of Greater Springfield to extend the period of performance to March 31, 2024, and confirming and approving related services provided from January 1, 2024 to the passage of this ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Are there comments from commissioners? Dr. Esprop?
Even though this says Habitat for Humanity of Greater Dayton, Springfield is now part of the Greater Dayton organization, so the work will be done in Springfield.
Comments from the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Dr. Estrom?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Providing for supplemental appropriations within various funds and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Dr. Estrom?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Confirming purchases and obtaining of services for the city and providing for payment therefore, and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Are there comments from commissioners? From the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Dr. Estrom?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
providing for the issuance of bonds to pay the property owner's portion in an anticipation of the collection of special assessments heretofore levied of the cost of constructing sidewalk, curbs, and gutters comprised in the 2022 sidewalk, curb, and gutter program at various locations throughout the city and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Are there comments from commissioners?
Brian,
Go ahead.
Brian, can you give us just a little bit of information on this one?
Yeah, I'll actually ask Katie Evanston to provide a little bit more detail.
Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner. So bond anticipation notes were issued in July of 2022 and again in July of 2023 as this program was not yet complete. The city has sent invoiced the property owners and collected payments from those who wish to pay before we assess those through the county on their property taxes. So this bond is for the portion that remained unpaid. The debt service on the bond is set to align with the assessment revenue, which is 10 years. So this is a 10-year bond. As Brian mentioned earlier, with the increased cost of concrete, over the past couple of years, we have extended the payment and assessment on the homeowner portion from 5 years to 10 years to allow for a longer term of repayment. And the homeowner's portion is capped at $5,000. So the bond is $596,400 and the rate is 4.5%. And this is for the lane addition area west of Burnett Road.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Comments from the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Providing for the issuance and sale of notes in the maximum aggregate principal sum of $278,600 in anticipation of the issuance of bonds to pay the cost of constructing sidewalk, curbs, and gutters comprised in the 2023B sidewalk, curb, and gutter program at various locations throughout the city and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Are there comments from commissioners? From the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into change order number 1 to the contract with Graviton Consulting Services Incorporated to make adjustments to the statement of work for the implementation of the new Enterprise Resource Planning ERP system and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Comments from commissioners? Dr. Estrop?
Yes, I was just wondering if the staff might give us some additional information.
Yes, Commissioner. So this is a $0 change order for that overall technology enhancement project that we've been talking about for a couple of years now. Essentially, we are updating the timeline for phase 3. Phase 3 is the HR or human capital management piece of that software implementation, which involves human resources, time and absence, and payroll. We're just adjusting the date for go live there. Eliminate phase 2 that was in the statement of work for the budget application that we implemented back in July, as we remove some things from the statement of work there. And then revises the phase 4 application, which is asset management related to the city service center and implementing city work through Woolpert, just adjusting the timeline there to align with what's recommended from the contractor.
Very good. Thank you. How many green screens do we have left?
Until we implement the software that you voted to pass a couple of meetings ago for utility billing, through the end of the year, we'll be on those black and green screens. But all of accounting has moved over to Oracle.
We are keeping one for history's sake.
Maybe.
Thank you.
Comments from the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to apply for, accept, and enter into a cooperative agreement to finance a portion of the city's Roosevelt Drive waterline project with the Ohio Water Development Authority, OWDA. Authorizing the city manager, finance director, and law director to do all things necessary to implement said loan application and cooperative agreement and to comply with all relevant local, state, and federal legal requirements and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Are there comments from commissioners? Dr. Estrop.
I was just wondering if you again might explain greater detail what we're doing, Mr. Heck.
Yeah, Commission, so I'll talk to the project and then I'll have Katie talk a little bit about the loan itself. The next two items, 051-24 and 052-24, are interrelated. The one is setting up the loan. The second is award of contract, but this is for a water line replacement project from North Limestone to almost the dead end of Roosevelt. And this is approximately 1,032 feet of water line that will be replaced. This section of water line qualifies on the high main break list with the EPA, and so certainly something that we want to work on. And it has two critical users, Nationwide Children's Office, Medical Office, and a senior home on this line. So we want to make sure that we get this fixed and eliminate those water line breaks.
Very good. Thank you. Katie?
So speaking to the financing, this is an OWDA loan. The expected cost is $368,600 at a rate of 4.07%. And just a reminder for commission and the audience, whenever we have these larger capital projects, we look to debt financing to extend the impact to the ratepayer over a period of years.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Comments from the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Majors Enterprises Incorporated for the Roosevelt Drive Waterline Project for an amount not to exceed $333,884.01 and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Are there comments from commissioners? From the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Authorizing the purchase of 55 sets of V-Force turnout gear from Phoenix Safety Outfitters for an amount not to exceed $218,835 through Sourcewell pursuant to the Sourcewell Contract Purchasing Cooperative Program in accordance with the provisions of Section 9.48 of the Ohio Revised Code and declaring an emergency therein. We did make a note on the agenda. This item was a first reading at the last meeting and has been updated to an emergency.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Chief, you want to just go ahead and remind and speak to this a little bit? This is the safe work gear for our firefighters. Am I right?
So I just want to take the opportunity, though, since I get to come to the mic now, is make sure everybody have their weather radios turned on. Make sure you're paying attention to your weather apps. We are expecting some pretty severe weather tonight, especially in the overnight hours. So we're predicting.
No, I'm just kidding.
This is why you're chief.
No, of course.
High winds, hail, potential tornadoes.
Oh, my God.
Just throw that out there.
Thank you.
Back to the matter at hand, Mayor. This is to purchase the 55 sets of firefighting gear that we use day in and day out to protect our firefighters while we're fighting structural fires, doing tech rescue, or auto extrication. This is a key component to our ability to serve the community. It does have a lifespan. No matter if it looks brand new or not, it's a 10-year life expectancy from the date of manufacturer, not from the date that we receive. And so we're always working to continue to stay ahead.
Thank you. Have more?
Chief, as I recall, you shared with us that the cost to refurbish these protective equipment was more than to purchase them new. Is that correct?
That's correct. So over time, although there's a 10-year lifespan associated with the NFPA, the National Fire Protection Association, that establishes our standards, says 10 years, we're seeing a 4 to 5 year lifespan based on the amount of fire that we see here in the city. Over 140 structure fires typically per year that we see. And so that's an exuberant amount. So we're working to, one of our goals in 24 is to go after that to reduce the number of fires. But that is causing significant wear and tear on our gear. And so we get to a point where it costs more to repair than it does just to buy a new set. So we're trying to get ahead of that. We have this year and next year, pretty significant ask for the purchase of gear, but then we're expected to do some leveling and try to make sure we have a levelized budget versus big.
Thank you, Chief.
Comments from the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Confirming and approving a joint law enforcement operations task force obligation document to obtain funding of up to $21,901 for task force officer overtime reimbursement for the period of October 13, 2023 through September 30, 2024, pursuant to the Memorandum of Understanding between the City and the United States Marshals Service, authorizing the City Manager and Chief of Police to perform all acts and execute all documents they consider necessary to fulfill the city's obligations under said agreement and to comply with all relevant local, state, and federal requirements, and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Other comments from commissioners? From the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Confirming and approving the Federal Equitable Sharing Agreement and certification with the United States Government, Department of Justice, and Department of Treasury for the period of January 1, 2024 through December 31, 2024, and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Are there comments from commissioners? Dr. Estrop?
I was wondering if we might get some additional information about.
Yes, Commission. I'll have Chief Elliott speak to this matter.
Thank you, sir. So we have officers and detectives who we have a partnership with the Drug Enforcement Administration. They're task force officers, so anytime there's an opportunity for them to work local or federally with jurisdiction cases, any sort of asset forfeiture or money seized, if we work part of that case, we're able to be reimbursed for that or be provided some of that, a portion of that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Comments from the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into amendment number 1 to the subrecipient funding agreement, Emergency Solutions Grant 2022-2023 with Sheltered Inc. to extend the period of performance to March 31, 2024, confirming and approving related expenditures incurred from October 31, 2023 to the passage of this ordinance and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Other comments from commissioners? From the audience?
Otis Williams, 1627 Yorkshire Court.
Thank you.
Where do we go from here after this is done?
So this specific item is related to this past year's ESG grant. This extends that to March 31st of 24 because typically this is used for rapid rehousing, and Sheltered Inc. typically uses other funds before they use this, which is why we need to extend so they can utilize these funds now. We put out a request for proposals through Neighborly for this next allotment of ESG dollars, and we will look to award those to respondents here in the coming meetings.
You know, we have that problem in Springfield with the housing situation, and you see a lot of people on the street that don't want to be out. Some of them want to be out. And I seen a gentleman the other day, he was pulling a wagon, and on the back of his wagon, he had Beware the Dog. We can't have that situation in Springfield. Know where the situation, what the problems are, know who can help solve the problem. Step up that people.
I will again say that the city of Springfield is actively engaged in making sure that our displaced individuals have shelter as much as we can provide. And we have been doing that a while. Okay. Other comments from the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to execute consultant modification number 329463 with LJB Incorporated to provide additional engineering design services for the CLA State Route 72 project, PID number 10628711372, for the amount not to exceed $15,145 for a total amount not to exceed $923,436 and declaring it an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Other comments from commissioners? Dr. Esprop?
I was just wondering, all the numbers being very low, what's going on?
Yeah, so Commission, this is relative to the South Limestone project that we're looking at modifying here, approximately Luffle Lane to Singer Street, which is just past Grocery Land to the north. And so as a part of the contract, we're having the design consultant do a study and design for a potential emergency traffic signal as it relates to the new fire station that's going there. So that's what this ad is for, but it's specifically the overall, all the numbers with ODOT and so forth is related to the South Limestone reconstruction project.
Very good, thank you.
Comments from the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Dr. Estrom?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Confirming and approving change order number 1 to the contract with RB Jurgens Contractors Incorporated for the US 40 Ditch Improvement Project to increase the contract in an amount not to exceed $8,053.42 for a total amount not to exceed $568,593.62, authorizing the city manager to execute said change order number 1 and declaring it an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Comments from commissioners?
Can we have a better description or?
Yeah, I'll actually ask Chris Moore to speak to this project.
This project filled in the concrete ditch that was in front of Cinema 10, running up the hill towards Walmart on US 40. It filled that ditch in with a pipe and graded it in a way that hopefully we'll be able to finish mow it and make it much safer for the motoring public, make it much safer for our people doing the work, and keep the trash away.
Thank you. Comments from the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Dr. Estrom?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Confirming and approving change order number 1 to the contract between the city and Majors Enterprises Incorporated for the Northern Avenue Utility Upgrade Project to increase the contract in an amount not to exceed $53,496 for a total amount not to exceed $4,491,232, authorizing the city manager to execute change order number 1 and declaring it an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Are there comments from commissioners? Dr. Esprop?
Once again, if you could offer some additional information on this project, please.
Yes, again, I'll have Chris Moore speak specifically to this.
So this particular change order stems from between Rogers Drive and Winton Place. We found an old abandoned 30-inch sewer line under the curb. It was blocked off at both ends. That had to be removed. Removing that removed a lot more roadway than was anticipated. The street collapsed around and underneath. That's what this is. I still haven't found a record of the sewer, but they put it there and abandoned a long time ago.
Thank you.
Comments from the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Dr. Estrom?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Confirming and approving change order number 2 to the contract between the city and A&B Asphalt Corporation for the Fountain Avenue paving Phase 1 project to increase the contract in an amount not to exceed $1,480 for a total contract amount not to exceed $726,145.72, authorizing the city manager to execute said change order number 2 and declaring it an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Are there comments from commissioners? From the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Dr. Estrom?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
And then the next two items were added to the agenda, appointing Andrea Migliozzi to the Board of Springfield Metropolitan Housing Authority and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Other comments from commissioners, from the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Reappointing Amanda Lance to the Springfield Historic Landmark Commission and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. I'd just like to say with these two appointments, one, I appreciate Amanda continuing her service to the Springfield Historic Landmarks, and Andrea just for stepping up and being involved with Springfield Metropolitan Housing. That's a active board. And also, just a word to the community, we are in need of folks that are interested in serving on some of the 35 boards that we have throughout the community that help inform Springfield and make decisions for Springfield. So we just put that out there again as a need that we have. Is there comments from the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes. We have committee reports. Dr. Estrop, do you have a committee report?
Yes, I do, Mayor Rube. Thank you very much. As members of the commission know, I serve as the commission's liaison to the Clark County Board of Health. And I'm pleased to announce, very pleased to announce, a partnership between Wright State University and the Health Department, Clark County Health District. The Health District will be a site to offer advanced practicum opportunities for Wright State University master's and doctor's students. Graduate students from Wright State will provide volunteer hours at our Clark County Health District. They will work with each other in terms of mutual co-op programs, and they will also serve as, Wright State will serve as the institutional review board for any research projects. Wright State will also has agreed to help with the community health assessment and youth risk behavior. I think this is a tremendous opportunity for people in our community to work on behalf of the people of Springfield and Clark County while getting academic credit at Wright State. So I want to commend Chris Cook and the folks at the Clark County Combined Health District and Wright State University for coming to agreement and offering these opportunities to the people of Clark County and Springfield. Thank you very much.
I know we talked about doing, so I'll speak to a little bit. We always try to speak to the committee we formed in the beginning of the year called the Immigration Accountability Response Team. I just had several meetings, and I believe you had a meeting around immigration too, Ms. Tackett. So I'll just say a little bit if you want to add anything in one of the meetings you had. So I got to meet with our governor at his residence in Columbus. It was a neat experience, but I had an audience with the governor for about an hour and 15 minutes. And it was just me, myself, and the Director of Safety, Andy Wilson, and Mrs. DeWine. And within that time, I was able to talk about 5 different topics with the governor. And one of them, of course, we began with immigration and the concern we have in Springfield, and that we have formed this task force to look at safe housing, safe employment, and safe education for the immigrants that are here within the community. So we also have been invited by Congressman Turner. You may have read that in the paper. The city will be able to go to Washington, D.C., and Congressman Turner is going to, well, we learned recently, door knocking in D.C., whatever that means, but I guess we're going to go speak to people about the concern that we have in Springfield. And the concern that we're going to take to them is the fact that we've seen an increase of at least 10% in our population over the last 4 years. And due to that, we have a large burden on our safety forces. Our goal is to make sure that the entire community is safe, and because we've had a fast and rapid increase of population, it is taxing our safety services. and they're doing the best they can, but it is difficult. So we're looking for some federal resources. But one of the reasons I brought that to the governor is because the state has been in sync with us as well in making sure that we have what we need from the state, and we just want to make sure that we want the governor to know that we believe that they are a good partner with us, and they are. But also to keep the pressure on the state legislature because they continue to, I'll just say, nickel and dime the city and taking away funds from the city that they would have supplied in the past, which is causing stress on our budget. And then we were able to talk about a couple other things, but I also brought up the need to restore local government funds. It's always going to be something that we bring up. We have audience with the highest level of state government, and also just we're concerned with our homelessness. There's been concern that funds could be dwindling from the state level to the city on homelessness to help us serve the unsheltered. And because of that, I brought that to the governor and said, we cannot take any funds in this area. Matter of fact, we want you to increase that so we can do what we need to do for the community here. So that was the time I got to spend with the governor, but he's very well aware, and some details I just can't share, of some of the things that are going on with the immigration and immigrants within our community. We want to make sure that, we can't stop. We're not going to stop people at the border of Springfield or Clark County. They're here, and we want to make sure that as a city government, we have our arms around this in a way that we have a safe community for folks to live here, our citizens and the folks that are coming into the community. It's just very important. Until that policy changes, whenever that could be or however that would affect the community, we're going to do what we can as a good city and take care of the folks that are here with us. And so that was my meeting. I also met with the interdenominational group, about 15 pastors and clergy from different denominations, and answered their questions. And much of what I just shared with you is what I shared with them as well. And then I also went with County Commissioner Sasha Rittenhouse on Monday morning. We met at Department of Jobs and Family Services and met with Jenny Martetes, and we spent about an hour and a half there going through DJFS, and was in the lobby, and there was a line coming into the lobby. These are folks with the proper paperwork to receive funds at the federal level while they're here. And at least anywhere between 100 to 140 would be the highest every day, 5 days a week. Folks are coming into JFS looking for support. And 75% of those folks have never been in the building before. 25% of the folks are folks that are already in the system or receiving benefits. 75% of the folks that are in the lobby, mostly immigrants, are receiving funds. So I only say that because JFS is extremely overwhelmed. They're concerned about keeping their lights on. It's a county organization, but it incredibly serves the city very well. So it was just another, as we're kind of touring and looking at these things, this helps us give information to the right folks in DC and also at the state level. But there's people that will tell this story in different departments and agencies. They don't believe it. I'm talking about government people. They don't believe that there's this kind of increase. And it is very real. And I know that people have stood at these microphones and told us it's real, it's real. We knew that, but we're also looking into at what level, how real the increase is. So again, our goal is to keep the community safe, and that's why we're doing having these meetings and also trying to get some action. Commissioner Tackett, would you like to add to that in your meeting?
Sure, yeah. I just want to thank the people that have kind of hosted me around the city in the past couple weeks, including Sherrod Brown's office, being interested in Clark County and learning the landscape here. I was able to host one of his representatives here. And instead of just me being at the table, I was able to bring experts in our community to show the landscape of Clark County. So those representatives were Job and Family Services. It was someone from the Homeless Task Force. It was someone from the Haitian Task Force. It was realtors who are trying to sell our properties and sell that we're a great community to live in. So
This was a great meeting where it's, sometimes I feel like we get stuck in our own silos in these meetings we get into. We're always with just only the real estate community, right? They're only talking about real estate. And this really broadened out that opportunity to connect across the board because we are all connected. It all feeds into each other. Schools, I was also in the schools, 2 different schools in the past 2 weeks, working with the youth, learning about the taxing population that they're seeing of resources being available and being able to serve our students. And then also, again, like working with the real estate professionals and what they're seeing with housing and how we can support them on information that we share with them to sell Springfield. So I just want to thank the people that came to my meetings and that invited me into their organization so I can become a more informed commissioner and share it with my fellow commissioners and you guys today. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent. Now I have non-committee comments. One, I know I didn't want to gloss over our chief reminding us, but if you weather alerts, stay involved and active tonight and be engaged in that and make sure that you stay safe. Secondly, there's been some chatter on some of the social medias about the citywide water meter replacement plan, and we just want you to know that that information is available on the website. It's basically, Brian, can you just speak real quick to this because it's not as confusing as it's. There's been yard signs put up about this. Maybe we didn't do the best in informing the public it's going down, or maybe we did, but why don't you go ahead and speak to it?
Yeah, we're trying to reach, it's always a challenge to reach multiple mediums or through multiple mediums to reach everyone, but trying to educate the public as much as possible as we work through replacing eventually all of our water meter infrastructure throughout the community with, just obsolete and older water meter equipment. And so we are working through different areas of the community. We are placing signs throughout there. We've actually updated those signs recently to make them a little bit more easier because there was a lot of information, a lot of text on them. So we shortened that to just make it a little bit more efficient and effective for those that are reading it. But there is information on our website. We made sure that was moved to our homepage, so springfieldohio.gov. You can learn a little bit more about the water meter project. Chris, I don't know if you want to just speak for 2 seconds on the change out itself and what happens. It's actually, for most water meters, it's pretty quick once they come into your house and replace that meter.
It is a very quick process. We're getting most done in about 15 minutes. We are going around, we're knocking on doors, giving out door hangers. Those door hangers give people 10 days to call us and schedule an appointment. In the rare cases we don't get a call, we do have to turn folks' water off. It's amazing that the phone does ring after that. We don't want it to get to that.
Oh, wait a minute.
Yes.
Right. So you're saying if you don't get a hold of the resident and they don't switch that you're turning the water off?
Yes.
Okay.
That's so. Just so everyone understands, these meters that we're replacing have failed. That is that's the standard practice to get in and get the meter replaced. Turning water meters off is not a very common practice, but it is the last resort when someone is, I guess, avoiding the process, so to speak.
Gotcha.
And how long are we expecting this process to take again?
4 years.
4 years.
We're replacing about 4,000 meters per year. Right now, people are calling every day. We're scheduling appointments. We're doing appointments after hours and on weekends to make sure we can accommodate folks' working schedules. Commissioner Estrop.
Yes, I had mine done today.
Okay.
And I called the number on the sign that's all over the city, or at least in our neighborhood. I called that number. The person was very helpful, scheduled a time. The person was there on time, the city employee. It did take Chris about 15 minutes to do. It was not a big hassle. He came in with all the tools and a bucket to catch what little water there was, changed it out, and we're off and running with our new meter. So I can't encourage you enough. Just call the number on the sign and the person will be very helpful in schedule, and the city will follow up. My compliments to your staff for a great job, Chris.
Thank you.
I just made a comment, Brian, so you heard, make sure you heard it. Why don't you do a QR code where people can actually schedule this online? Because if we're going to do this over 4 years, the signs are difficult to read. I think that's why people are questioning them. I saw a Facebook post, is this real? People aren't trusting. And so I actually went on there and said, it is real. But I think if you had a QR code that went to our website and they could actually schedule it that way, that may be helpful and even more efficient.
Excuse me, so the QR code concept is in the works.
Cool.
As Brian said, we've updated the signs, so we're 6-ish weeks into this. We absolutely are going to make mistakes. I can assure everyone we'll make mistakes.
I don't know if I call this a mistake. I just think another way we can communicate is just to have people go directly to our website so they can feel like, oh, okay, this is a real project.
And what we're finding is every neighborhood requires a different form of communication, so we have to figure out what works best where.
Excellent.
What an opportunity to move us forward in technology. Way to go.
Any other comments from commissioners? Okay, I've got some cards for the audience.
Oh, real quick, sorry, I wasn't fast enough. I just wanted to do a quick mention, okay? So International Women's Day, of course, celebrated internationally, but Springfield has celebrated it for 6 years. So celebrating women on March 8th at Cohatch from 6 to 8. The girls are taking over Cohatch. There'll be female vendors there. All ages are welcome. I want to give a quick shout out and thank you to Cohatch for being the host this year. Sunflower Studio, Balloon Dog, Oak and Ivy, Lead with Love Photography, and the committee members, Brandy Dyer, Amanda Ambrosia, and Jennifer Dunn, for helping me host this event and keep it going, celebrating women in Springfield, March 8th, International Women's Day. Thank you.
March 8th, excellent. Okay, I have cards. We're going to begin with Gary. If you want to come up to the microphone, you have 3 minutes. It's Gary Armstrong.
Gary Armstrong, 109 East Ward Street. If I want to back up a year in something, Mr. Mayor, I'd say number one thing this city hasn't had in years and years is leadership. And leadership is, I'd like to hear somebody get up and be real. This city is poor. And and paint a rosy picture. Yeah, rosy pictures are nice. But you have to pay bills. Then I watch the hotels. I see overspending for property that isn't even worth a fraction of that. I see you spending money, $900,000 for there. Does anybody try to do things? When you build stuff, there's a price to build it right. But there's an overprice and there's an underprice. Underprice isn't right. Overprice is you paid too much. That's what I expect out of my government, not to overspend taxpayer money. And taxpayer money comes in many forms, and just because it is COVID money, it's still out of our pocket. So that is treating me like I was an idiot when you say, but it's not being paid by the local tax. Then I hear us in here talking about giving taxes up for this new project here, the one out there at the Melody. That doesn't sell it. It doesn't break the project. It just alleviates money you should have had in our coffers. Why would you give up the money on those 6 buildings that they paid $200 and ended up paying $340,000 across from the brewery? Those people wanted to buy those 1,300 square foot units no matter what. But you gave up all that tax money that we need as a city. I want my people to think we don't have money. We're a poor family and we need to spend our money well because we don't want to misuse the money that taxpayers pay. That's how I think. You know, you guys look at me like, well, he's just an old freak who has raising hell. You know what? You don't even see me because I'm a person who you get me on the program, I'm a beneficial person to that program. But when you look at me like, oh, he's just a hell raiser in here, I have something to say because an elected official built a 4-unit and it's still sitting there a year and 3 months later, and I'll be here until somebody does their job. We have ordinances called laws that can close places down, and they deliver 4 family males to that building. They have all the evidence that I'm going to prevail with. But do I have to go to court and include the city of Springfield against that entity, that person, that former commissioner? But when I feel alone, that the city should be protecting me from him who violated the law. I didn't violate the law. He did. And I can't get anything done. And if you wouldn't have it be incensed, I'm incensed.
Thank you, Gary, for your comments.
You're right.
I appreciate it. Let me just make a very clear statement. I believe the public, we're letting a 3-minute opportunity for people to speak their minds. Whether we comment or not to your minds doesn't mean we agree or disagree with what your statement. We just have given you an opportunity to speak. If people take advantage of that, become insulting, don't address me, become unruly, then that's where we'll cut back on the time. It's really at my discretion how long we let you speak, but it is also what we've decided. So, I got a lot of comments, but I really just gonna go ahead and live what I said. You have 3 minutes to speak. Danny, you're up next.
Thank you, Mayor Rue. And just for the record, I'm going to be sleeping in the basement. If I saw the radar, I'm just saying. What I have to say tonight kind of dovetails with what you said, Mayor Rue, meeting with the governor. However, I will have to tell you that my job, as I see it, is to communicate to you what is being told to me from the citizens that you're not hearing. So I'm going to read a little statement that was relayed to me about a week and a half ago. Please don't wonder why crime is high and the shootings are up and thefts and break-ins and arguments in the aisles or in the streets or in the laundromat. It's anger, it's frustration, it's the residents are looking around and saying, what the hell is going on? What is in my backyard? Who is this? Where are they from? I don't understand them. I've lived here my whole life, back 3 generations. And these illegals waltz in here and get free shit. And I have worked
Hey,
my
Diane,
whole
Diane, listen to me.
okay.
Listen to me.
Yes. I'm just saying according
Listen to me.
to
I'm in
reason.
charge.
Okay.
No cussing.
Got it.
Got it?
Mm-hmm.
And they're not all illegal, so no broad generalization of they're illegal.
I'm just writing what he said.
Immigrants, but that's it.
Okay. I'm just writing what he said.
Thanks. Go ahead.
I'll just finish
Go
what
ahead.
I said. I have worked my whole life to get what I got, and they get it handed to them for free. We are all frustrated, and I know that some of you are working hard to make it better for them, but are you really making it better for us? That's the point. That's the frustration of all of us, of all of them. Hey, I'm on the immigrant side. I've seen what happens in the Darien Gap. If you haven't, then you need to go look at some documentaries. It's god awful. I saw Del Rio. But I will tell you this fact, and I'll tell you this fact right straight up. 97% of asylum seekers are not asylum seekers. Only 3% actually qualify for asylum. You figure it out.
Thank you, Diane. I have another card, Pamela Henry. Thank you. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Pamela Henry. Good evening, Mayor Rue, commissioners, and city staff. I want to thank you all for your commitment to the community, and I appreciate the changes that have happened here in Springfield. I was gone for about 10 years and came back 2 years ago, and I saw some really great changes here. And I'm sure it's thanks to the work of the commission and the city staff. It takes a lot to deal with a big community now that we're becoming. So, but I am alarmed at the rate of crimes involving gun violence here in the city. And during 1 week this month, there were 4 incidences of gun violence. One of them occurred in a popular strip mall. We all know Bechtel Avenue over there just recently. I think it was Thursday last week. Another incident earlier this month, a man was shot dead in his vehicle on Mason Street, right down the road. According to a website that reviews crime rates by city, Springfield, Ohio ranks as one of the most dangerous cities in Ohio, which is startling to hear, but it's one of those things you Google Springfield, Ohio, and you find this by chance. In an interview last week on local news, Mayor Rue said the city is paying attention to gun violence. The city cares about this, and I believe that. But also, I would like to know what kind of programs and initiatives we're putting forth right now to kind of laser focus in on that, because I don't know numbers. I worked a lot in statistics. I don't know numbers here in Springfield. Is it on the rise? What's the 5-year trend or even 10-year trend? What kind of trends are we looking at? And just kind of what's the overall view, and how are y'all feeling about it?
Well, we all hate gun violence.
Yes,
So I'm going to
well.
ask our chief of police to maybe share what she can about her concerns. Are you
Thank
okay
you.
with that? Are you
Thank
okay
you.
with that? Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
before Alice, I know she's walking over there, I wanted to state one of the programs that we've worked with is a multi-agency partnership to establish a gun violence committee specifically focused on youth gun violence, because that is where we've seen a significant rise is the number of youth that have been utilizing guns in our community. This partnership is made up of Springfield Foundation, City of Springfield, Clark County, the Juvenile Court, OIC, and actually putting resources, and we actually were able to receive a grant, and I know I'm missing agencies that have been involved, but we were able to receive a grant to help assist in doing exactly is understanding the numbers and understanding how we can impact change in our community. And so this program, this gun violence coordinating group is really advancing forward to try to get at the core issues of the problem that we're seeing in our community. So I am excited for that. They've actually OIC will house the staff member that will manage the program, and actually this pulls in with the grant resources from universities like Case Western Reserve that have helped other communities develop programs to get at the core root cause of the gun violence in communities. So I'm excited for that. I know Chief Elliott has prepared some information too relative to the gun violence we've seen, and ask her to share that now.
Good evening, and thank you again. I really appreciate the inquiries, the questions. I think this is an opportunity to also help clear up some confusion and maybe misinformation as well, because I will caution you, and we all understand it, but I guess before we even get started into some of the details, please be mindful. People do have the opportunity, and they're listening to our radio traffic and our calls. But with that comes misinformation on social media. A lot of that is happening prior to officers even arriving to the call. So what you'll see is people will hear something on the radio. That information gets put out over social media or certain pages. And then that information continues to snowball. Sometimes we understand how the game of telephone is, and it's not malicious. It's just passing information, and it goes down through the line. But a lot of times what ends up happening is by the time we're on the call, there are multiple different stories of what happened, and that can also pose, some challenges for our investigations. Information's important to get out, and we're working as a department on communication and making sure we're doing better and getting that information out. But we also do face those challenges with social media and some of the misinformation that is happening from the beginning of the call. As far as, the increase that we've seen and that we've talked about, I want to thank so many people here in this room tonight, and our commissioners and our mayor, city manager, all the support that they've provided, because we are continuing these gun violence conversations. And how do we address it? This is not just a Springfield challenge. This is a nationwide issue, and the entire nation is being impacted by our youth being involved in these violent situations. So it's not unique to us, but it's extremely important because it's here with our community that we're facing it and we're dealing with it. I always say it's not just a police matter. It's not just a law enforcement related issue. And I wholeheartedly believe that it's going to take an entire community-wide effort. There are many people just like this gun violence prevention coordinator. This is just one piece of that puzzle. I can assure you that our officers are working around the clock. There have been times that we have had to send our officers and detectives home because they are trying to exhaust all resources in identifying the individuals involved in these violent crimes and these situations. They are making arrests. They are identifying and trying to address it when it happens. I will tell you that when we're talking about juveniles, it's a little bit of a different process in the juvenile court system. So, our officers are filing charges, but, with that, understanding that incarceration is not always the answer every single time to every single situation. And we're working with Judge Lancaster and juvenile court probation closely, and we continue those open lines of communication. I do have some information prepared over the last year. I know folks have wondered about the gun violence and the stolen cars involving our juveniles. I can provide over the last year how many arrests were made, or to show that officers are filing these charges and identifying these individuals involved. But before I do that, I ask you as a community, and I ask all of us as a community, please talk to your children. Sit down and have conversations with your children, grandchildren, family, friends. Look at their social media. Their social media tells a lot. And I will tell you, our detectives and our officers see a lot of things on social media, and I'm sure it's being shared in the community. Information's being shared on the community, but if you don't know what's going on your child's social media, it will be alarming if you find out what's happening and you're not digging into that. And it's not to be invasive into your child's life or someone's life, but it's important because there are things that are happening behind the scenes through the social media chains that are definitely disturbing and alarming. So please have those conversations. We're continuing to have those talks with our school resource officers and the schools, trying to tap into those resources as well, working with them. Folks, it's a thing that's, taking off. Social media is huge, and you don't have to have any sort of guidelines essentially to create a social media page for yourself. So please have those conversations before you stop and say, well, not my child, that's not my child. It can happen to all of us, and just be aware of that, be mindful of that. Over the last year, from last February, we pulled together some statistics. I will tell you that we are being mindful of our new records management system and gathering some of that data. We're operating a few different systems, so some of the details, we're working through that to try to pull accurate data to provide to all of the community and make them aware. But there were a total of, and when I say this, 56 juvenile arrests reported, and there are some circumstances where some of that data is not going to be reported into this system from the last year. But as far as charges related to offenses involving violent crime, gun offenses, and theft of motor vehicles, there were 28 total related charges within the last year, and our officers and detectives are continuing to work on that. But that's just a piece of that, right? Again, yes, I'm a police officer. Yes, I'm in law enforcement, but incarceration in every situation is not always the answer to every problem, and it's not the method, and we have to get to the root cause. We have to continue to work together as a team, as an entire community. We talk a lot, Commissioner Tackett mentioned silos. Everybody does such a fantastic job. Let's continue to pull together and work together like we are. We're going to continue to do as much as we can in law enforcement as the police division, but we need your assistance. So if the public knows something, if there is information, social media is a great line of connection. I know I said some things about it earlier, but it is a great way to get information out too. So if there are videos, there's information, evidentiary value, please reach out to us and share that with us. That will help us, and ultimately it will help protect our youth and protect our community, because we've got to get to this root cause.
Thanks. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Dr. Estra?
Yes.